We're going to cover about what is AI agent, why AI agent need other governance, type of AI agents, risk landscape. We also going to cover about the governance framework which is required. Then on the section of implementation part, what is the phases and how to test the AI agents and how the enterprise can adopt AI agent in the organization, how the enterprise adopt the AI. So when we're talking about AI agent, what is AI agent? If you go by the definition, AI agent is like a program that use AI to autonomously perceive its environment, make decision, and take action to achieve the goal. Let's understand in a more simpler manner. I believe everyone is aware about ChatGPT, right? So if you take example, this is a user. Okay, he connect with the ChatGPT. Okay, so you enter the prompt, they review the prompt, and according to that, they provide the data. I believe that is how the process works. Yes or no? Hello. So in this case, what happen is you enter the prompt, ChatGPT analyze the prompt and provide the outcome. So moral of the story is that the ChatGPT has to rely on the user, right? Let's understand in a more non-technical manner. So this is not a AI agent. This is like a AI. Okay. Here we have a dependency on the human. We have to enter the queries, then only you get a reply. Now imagine you have a smart robot friend. Okay, smart robot friend. You tell the router, oh, sorry, you tell the robot, please help me to find my car. Okay, please help me to find my car. Robot, look around the room. Okay, it is called seeing and listening. Then it think, okay, toy car usually under the bed or on the shelf because in the last time we have seen, so they look into the bed. So he have a history. Okay, he crawl under the bed and find the toy and give it to you. That is basically called as an action. Do you notice something here? Listening, planning, which is called reasoning, and action. So next time, robot will remember the toy car are often under the bed. That is again a learning for him. So the robot friend is just like an AI agent. It listen, think, does things, and learn for that. First one clear? Hello. So, but problem is that when you rely too much on AI agent. Now, let's say example, I'm running a company. Along with that, so I want to run LinkedIn, I want to run Facebook, and I want to run YouTube, and I want to run Instagram. So according to the logic is I have to first log into LinkedIn, post there. Then I have to log into Facebook. I have to post there. Then I log into YouTube. I have to post there. I have to go to Instagram. It posts there. Does it take time? What if we have a AI agent? Their passwords and APIs are integrated here. I just told AI agent open all the four portal and post this content. After that, they will not ask me anything. They understand the pattern when I post. They review the pattern and simply post the content, which I basically instruct the AI agent. Do you see any kind of a issue here from the functionality point of view? Does it save your time? My question is that does it save your time? Yes, it save your time. But anything which is designed to provide you productivity or convenience can sometimes backfire. Agree? Wi-Fi is the best example of that. It giving you freedom. You can join the internet from anywhere in the house. But same Wi-Fi can be hacked by the hacker. So AI agent take a lot of integration. What if AI agent get hacked? What if AI agent is not performing the duty as per a requirement? That something can be a concern. So that's something we need to look for. And that is what the purpose of this particular webinar. So this AI model plan the data, reason the data and act on behalf of the organization. Unlike your static model like LLM tools and API for the continuous interaction. Because in ChatGPT and all that, you enter the query, you get a response. Until unless you don't enter the query, you won't get the response. And that is why from the governance perspective, agents are like a act. Okay. So one of the friend, he used agent. Okay. So what he did, don't laugh. Okay, guys, don't laugh. So this guy, what he did, he said, call baby. So that guy has saved baby one, baby two, baby three phone number. So agent is basically assume last time he called baby two and say, I will come late. That baby is basically was a girlfriend or boyfriend, whatever. And real baby get to know he was doing a cheating. So agent, which is basically him, act like a friend for him, become a threat for him. Is it clear? So that is why agent is just like an actor. Okay, with responsibility, with control and accountability. Is it clear? Recently, it happens with me also. I got some quotes from the leader that okay, whenever anyone angry on you, you should laugh. I have an agent also. Okay, so agent also listened that. So one day, what happened? My wife was shouting on me. So they took that quote, and that agent was also start laughing. Agent, nothing has happened to the agent. I was the victim in that particular case. So here what happened is if I don't govern them properly, if I don't process effectively, it can sometimes backfire. So we need to control the agent. Okay. So that's why we need to define the responsibility. We need to have very good clarity about the responsibility, what controls we need to have, and what accountability they need to carry. Okay. So customer services use AI agent. Knowledge workers use AI agents. Orchestrators are use AI agent. Now I have seen lot of buzzword around AI agent, AI assistant, and bot. So far, everyone on the same page. Do you guys understood what is AI agent? Now, when we're talking about AI agent, it's not limited to only AI agent. We have a AI agent, we have a AI assistant, and third is bot. And I've seen a lot of people get confused with that. So AI agent is like autonomously, proactively perform the task. They can perform the complex steps and all that. The best example is you are using a trading agent. You are using a trading agent which monitor the stock market. Okay, it analyze. It basically check the trend and then it basically execute the order. Am I clear? So agent is there which monitor the stock market, analyze the trend, execute buy or sell order automatically within a defined risk limit. So I have defined some limit. Within that limit, it basically execute the thing. Do I need to be involved here? No, that is a AI agent. Second example, AI sales agent that learn over time, which leads are high value by analyzing a conversion data, improve the reach, and automatically reach out to people. That is a AI agent. But what is AI assistant? AI assistant is like medium autonomy. See, when we're talking about autonomy, it is called as a right or condition. Okay, autonomy is basically mean right, or you can say a level of right or level of condition we can have. That is basically called as a autonomy. So in which condition the agent have a more autonomy? Agent or assistant? Agent. In the assistant, he has a less autonomy. It has a medium autonomy. So can we say Siri or Alexa? The way you prompt, set the timer, what is the weather? So they can't act on without, without being asked. You have to give the instructions and according to that, they will react. That is called as a AI assistant. Clear team? Sometimes you feel like no one listen in my house. The only one person who listen to you is what? Siri and Alexa. Agree? Third is basically called as a bot. The bot is a least autonomy. And the best use case of the bot is a banking chat bot. I don't know whether notice when you visit any website, okay, they will follow some predefined question like press 1 for English, press 2. So here what happen is it is not reacting completely based on every instruction it responds. Second example is ATM machine. Every time when you have to enter the prompt, you get a same menu. Okay. So according to you, which one has a highest degree of autonomy out of three? The answer is basically AI agent. AI agent basically have a highest degree of autonomy because they're able to operate, make decisions, and achieve the goal. AI assistants are less autonomous because it requires user input, and bots are least autonomous and typically follow the pre-program rule. Sometimes what happens, like you tag Indigo, luggage missing. Sorry for that. Share the ID. Thank you. So what is it? That is an example of AI assistant or bot. Sometimes you tag any airline, my baggage is missing. Second question they ask, what is the ID? Thank you so much. That's a bot because predefined question. They cannot think beyond that. But one thing we need to understand, as we move toward the higher autonomy, you have a less control over their action. How many agree with that? As you move toward more and more autonomy, you have a less control over the agent. Agree? And it increase more risk for the organization. Clear? So that is why we have another important thing called AI agent safety and AI agent security. So first we discuss safety. Okay. So can we say robots are the best example of AI agent for us? Robot. The first robot who took the girlfriend of the robot creator. Do you know what is the name of the robot? Who basically created a society threat and everything. You know this guy, Rajnikant? He built a movie, Robot, right? Chitti. So he built the robot, and the robot itself basically took his girlfriend. So you can imagine if you don't govern it properly, anything can be possible. And that is basically lead to the safety issue. Agree? It is lead to the safety issue. So what the agent should and should not say or do, like harm, minimization, truthfulness, fairness, compliance, and all that. I don't know whether you remember, when we are a kid, we there was a when there is a one series used to come on Star World. Remember? Whatever you say, she follow, instruct. It's like I forget the name of that series. It's a very cute series. Small wonder. So sometimes too much information you give, according to it react. Yes or no? So AI agent safety mean it should have a right behavior. Is it clear? On the other side, AI agent security basically mean that make sure it should protect from all kind of a data security issues. Who can do what with the agent, data or tool, like protecting a CIA, confidentiality, integrity, it have a secure access. Make sure no one should able to misuse the data from an infosec perspective. So agent safety mean right behavior and agent security mean correct way to provide the access. Is it clear? The basics. So let's understand the behavior between the human and agent. So you get a more clarity. Now, please give proper attention to this diagram. Normally, what is a human behavior? Is my screen is visible to everyone? Okay. So what happened is we have a human behavior. Okay. It decide to buy a new phone due to the poor performance. Okay. Now what happened is he reviewed the past purchasing experience and based on that he retrieved the smartphone knowledge. That is called recall. It's same thing happened. Like if you don't like one of the shop outlet and all that, you will change the thing. Then you analyze the smartphone specification feature and all that is called your logical deduction, reasoning process. Then you choose a suitable smartphone after the evaluation. That is called your decision mechanism. And then order the phone online, make the payment. That is called action execution. And then assess the buying experience. The same thing done by the agent. Input a prompt to the intelligent agent, buy a new phone. It has a memory, RAG memory, responsible governance part. They check the smartphone knowledge, include specification, review, and price comparison. So does it save my time? The initially which I used to do that, it basically do that because we have a API to connect with Google and all that. Then evaluate smartphone specifications, features, and all that, which is called chain of thoughts. Does it save my time? Yes. Then fine tune with the domain knowledge, choose a specific model and all that's called also save my time. And then invoke the MCP model context protocol API interface to complete the transaction. And then use the feedback to keep the knowledge. So this is basically we need a governance now in every angle. Okay, so governance decide what should happen and who is accountable for that, and security ensure only it happen in a safely manner in all these process. Basics are clear. Okay. Now, question is how AI agent works. Concept is same. It's all about what you're going to control. Now, how AI agent work? The first is called as a goal perception. Okay, it's very important for you to know how it works. Then only you know how to control that. So first step is called goals and perception. Goal. Let's take example. Uh, so I want to tell the AI agent to book my flight. Book my flight. Okay, and that is something I need to book from Delhi to Bangalore. So I want to book the flight from Delhi to Bangalore. First one clear? Now what AI agent do is AI agent first define its objective and continues to gather information from its environment, much like a human sense. Now this is basically governance angle. My question is that can we limit our perception here? Because if you enable more perception, sometime it can backfire. How many agree with that? We have an agent which I want to use for the flight services and all that. If you start from the day one, you can able to control further, right? So here the user tell the AI agent book the flight. Now what agent perceive? Objective is what? Objective is what? Find flight, find flight, do the comparison, and suggest the best option. Now here, what is the governance angle? Make sure whatever the booking travel, whatever the source we have, it should be valid from which he need to check. You should you should block, like, you can't request the passport data or access personal banking and all that. You know, you need to remove all the sensitive informations. You need to have a rate limit. You cannot request more than 2 3 times. That's why I don't know whether notice in chat GPT and all that, if you enter more and more queries, sometimes you get an error, right? So you need to make sure introduce some rate limiting and all features from the goal perception only, because by this you can able to control DOS attack also. So you collect all these pointer. Now second step is called reasoning. Reasoning is basically mean what happened. So here we search for available flights, we filter by the time, we compare the price and all that. Now what is the governance angle? The governance angle is agent must explain why these flights were chosen, cheapest, shortest and all that. Okay, it shows multiple airline options. Okay, it should have a cost decision. Make sure it limit the API calls. It should ensure it should not bypass some kind of a restriction. So that is basically part of a reasoning and planning. The third is called as the tools, use and action. It means the agent will connect to the APIs. Do you want me to connect with any random API, or do you want to connect with the approved API which is approved by my organization for vendor management? What do you think? But here, because of for a sake of fake and all that, they randomly integrate with anything. So here I'm integrating the API which is called Make My Trip and Wire.com and Booking.com. This is basically my API. Now, default what happened, old agents have an option to read and write, but now agent can read and search flight, but cannot finalize the payment. Do you want a human click here whenever the payment it asks for? Because during a tool and use and action, you connect the API with a password for the payment option. Do you want a human click? That is a one governance angle. You getting a point? So you will introduce a segregation of duty that AI can draft the booking, but who will confirm? Who will confirm? So you need to speak with the AI engineer who building a AI agent to make sure where you want to control what. And if user cancel the booking, draft the booking, save the booking, limit the privilege, need to know. All those things are part of a security governance angle. Understood, team? Now understood what is the role of a governance here. Default what happen, it fasten the process. Once you click, it will make the payment and book the things. But this is where the governance angle you are introducing. Okay, and last is called reflection and learning. So after the booking, agent reflect. Did the user accept the flight? Was the timing correct? Was the payment successful? Now up to you. So let's say example, during an emergency, you book the flight. And in that case, you book the flight, which is expensive. Do you want to keep that as a memory? Next time when he book the flight, he will take the memory. No, right? So you will set this policy. Anything which is against my office hour and all that I'm booking, don't keep it as a memory. So this kind of a function you're introducing. Okay, so during a reflection learning, you can decide what kind of a data you want to store. So do you want to store the last transaction, or do you want to store only the travel preference? Do you want to store credit card data, or do you want to store only the basic information? Yes, you need to audit also. You need to keep all data in encrypted manner. So these are the steps we have. Understood, team? So governance angle is policy, why we need that, rate limiting, control the function. Second is what kind of a data we are collecting and all that. That is called reasoning. Okay. Third, integration. What kind of integration we have, API functions and all that, user click and everything, and what kind of a data we need to store. From a privacy angle, from the data security angle, do you want to retain all the data? Answer is no. Because if you retain more and more data, you're answerable to the governance. So AI agent first define the objective, then they use a powerful LLM to perceive the information, analyze the possible outcome. Then agent execute the plan. And last is basically after the taking action, agent evaluate the outcome. And you can decide what we have. So now we're going to discuss the architecture angle. This is how the AI architecture works. Okay. So according to you, what comes first? The first come is profile. Second is memory. Third is planning. Fourth is action. So profile basically talk about who is the agent and what is allowed to do. Here you define your role. you define the domain, and you define the policies. Or you can say boundary. Why? Second is basically called as a memory. Memory is basically mean what the agent can remember, short term or long term. Third is basically called as a planning. It means how the agent break the goals into single path, multiple options. And action is basically talk about doing the works and everything. So let's understand the example. Okay. I have a budget only for, so I load the profile that anything should not go beyond the 2000 rupees. So that is basically my profile. It means if any agent basically sending any approvals and all that, if it go beyond the 2000, it should be asked for the approval. Now, what is a memory here? Memory will fetch the relevant facts like customer history, tickets and notes and all that. Then we have a planning. During a planning, what happen is we check the order, we verify the statements. And then we finally have a action plan. Action is basically you run the tool in order to read only, look up or store what you want to keep it. So this is how you need to add the governance angle. Okay. Now, three factors are there which basically consider when you adopt the AI. Okay, the first factor is performance. Let's say example company has given it us that you need to adopt the AI agent. So what should be the first factor? The first factor is performance. How many agree? Is it performance the first factor out of these three? Definitely, because why we're using AI agent? Agent is basically introduced to improve the productivity. So speed, accuracy, overall efficiency is the first factor. Second is called as a cost. Does it align with my budget? Do I need to have any kind of an indirect cost? And third, what is the reliability? Now, according to you, from governance angle perspective, what is the most important part? From governance angle, definitely from business angle, I know cost is important and performance is important. But can we say from governance perspective, reliability is important, which include the security, safety, and all that? Agree? That is what. So you have to convey, performance is great, it's coming fast, it's coming under the budget. But what is the point if it's generating a wrong data? And I'm sure you have seen in the past, right? If you see the past history of AI agents, they were great with performance and cost, but when it comes to reliability, they were literally worst. Agree? Sometimes they literally humiliate the candidates. They have exposed the data. So it's always true. That's why there is a need for governance to control the reliability. Clear? So question is, what are the type of agent we have? The first is called as a assistive agent. Okay, they suggest action for human. Do you notice in Gmail nowadays we have feature is whenever you draft the email, automatically it give you auto message. You want to type this, you want to type that, and all that. So that is a live example of assistive agents. Have you noticed that in Gmail, the settings when you're sending an email and all that? Okay, when you're sending an email and all that, or when you're drafting any email, automatically it basically take the predefined keywords and all that. So that is a live example of assistive agents. Okay. Autocomplete sentence. Agree. Exactly. Okay. Now, another important thing we talk about here is human in the loop. Now, what is human in the loop? Human in the loop is another important factor. Okay. Human in the loop is another important factor. Okay. So when you're talking about human in the loop, it execute the task on daily basis and provide the data. That is basically called as a human in the loop. Okay. Like AI driven loan approval systems and all that. Third is basically called as a human on the loop. There's a difference in human in the loop and human on the loop, like industrial robotics. Okay, that basically operate for a regular task, but it is supervised monitor dashboards by the human. And last is basically called autonomous agent, which is a most mature version of agent, which do everything automatically. Now the question is, what are the challenges we have with AI agents? The first is basically called as a privacy because they run a lot of data. And this is where the data governance play a very important role. Okay. Do you need to remove the identifiers? And if you're using any kind of biometric profiles and all that, do you prefer to remove those IDs and everything? Example, my name is Prab Nair and all that. They should remove my this data and only use my date of birth and all that. Yes. Because in Gen AI, what is the most important thing? And I'm sure everyone agree with me. Forget about Gen AI. We talk about any AI. Two things are there. Only two things are there. Infra and data. How many agree with that? You take any angle, but by end of the day, your any kind of AI run on two things, infra or data. No matter you talk about any other component, but by end of the day, we only have a two facts. One is basically called as a infra, and one is basically called as a data. So you need a proper governance on the data, and this is where you introduce the data governance. And if you want a dedicated webinar on that, do let me know in the comment box, because I have a very good content on data governance also from AI perspective. So data governance is the most important angle we have. Okay, where we're talking about pseudonymization, anonymization, we're talking about data and use security. So that something is part of the data governance. It's very, very important. And those who are from a data privacy background, I'm sure data governance will be the next big thing which is happening in the market. And second is basically having a proper infrastructure security. So data privacy is the biggest concern because AI agents need data, but you need to balance the data. Second is called as a ethical AI. How they're generating an output, that also matter. That is another challenge. And third is basically called technical complexity, because when you're taking an agent from third party and all that, you have very limited visibility because they're giving you a COTS, commercial off the shelf software. It's just like a setup thing. And fourth is called as a compute resources. If you don't control it properly, you can't manage things. That is why, if you see startups, okay, why don't you see big, startups who coming like a Perplexity or ChatGPT kind of company? Because for them, the biggest cost is what? What do you think? What is the biggest cost for them if they want to run any AI solutions? Compute. How many agree? Privacy is still able to manage with the people and collection, but compute resources will be basically the biggest concern. And to save the cost, what they do? They use cloud. Agree? So on one side, you are saying you need to have on-prem because of the data. But on the other side, a cost is a concern for a startup. So that is why the compute resources is sometimes become a challenge for the startups to compete in the market. How many agree with this statement? Agree? You cannot be ethical here, right? Now let's understand the AI agent risk. So recently what happened with Air Canada? Okay, so what happened is the Canadian tribunal ruled that Air Canada was liable for a factual error made by the chatbot. Okay. No, Nikhil. Some when it comes to the some of the companies and all that, they're using on-prem scenarios also. Like Gemini has introduced their India data centers and everything for data tuning and everything. Is it clear from that angle? That's why there is a lot of visibility. There's a lot of visibility is less visibility we have on data governance. Okay. So this chatbot, which was like a complete AI, was generating incorrect informations, giving a wrong fare and all that. So you can imagine how it impacting a reputation. Second, we have a Chevrolet. So user was able to trick a Chevrolet customer service chatbot into agreeing to sell a new Chevrolet Tahoe for $1. And this has happened. So you can imagine why important is the AI governance. Now question is when you need to intervene. Okay, AI agent is there. If I go back to the slide here, this one. Okay, this is the one. Step one, step two, step three, step four. It means when you enter the query, you tell the AI agent search for the flight. The goal become book flight. Reasoning become search, compare, and provide. Action is basically book the flight and reflect is store. I want the intervention in every angle. That's what's the beauty of governance. That is what a parameter of the governance. So we need a control in every layer. I need an intervention in every layer. And the most important layer is model. Model is the backbone of AI agent. So can we say model is the backbone or model is the brain of AI agent? Because it deal with your intelligence, it deal with reasoning, it deal with the decision based capability. Now what is the governance angle we can introduce here? The question is what kind of a training data they can train. Agree? They should publish the model card. This will be the next nightmare, especially if you're doing a business in Europe. You need to publish the model card. You need to publish the risk documentation. You need to publish the bias evaluation results. So whenever you're dealing with third party vendor for AI agent, ask for these reports. Okay, what is a model card? Model card is just like SBOM. Documentation, bias results. Okay, and define who own the decision. So that's why you bring in the contract. Second thing is that you need to talk about system layer. System layer is basically where you talk about where the models are interface. Okay, it is like an interface built around the model. That is called system. Like it enables the interaction with the user, tool, and external API. So that is basically called as a system layer. So you have to see which actions, what action can AI can execute. If anything going beyond the $5,000, you need an approval. So all those things comes under system. But this model and system run in the environment, which is called as an ecosystem. Because this environment in which agent is operate that matter, like example, browser, payment system, IoT devices, external agents. So we have to see what is the level of responsibility we have. Like the system is should be comply with EU AI 4201 and all that. It should be protected with network firewalls and all that. Is it clear? So we're going to discuss this. SBOM is just like a, when you buy any product, food product, or even water bottle, the backside of the product is mentioned what is the composition of protein, carbs, and all that. Whenever you buy any eatery items or when you buy any liquid and all that, right? That is basically called as a that's the similar we called as a SBOM. Clear? The similar is basically called as a SBOM. SBOM basically talk about okay. SBOM basically talk about the visibility. Okay, of the software. Same like we have a model card which talk about the visibility model details. Is it clear? So this is what you need to ask. Understood? In models, you should ask about documentation, metrics of their trial tested errors and their risk documentations. Is it clear? Because that is the only way you can able to have a visibility of the model. You don't have an internal visibility. Okay. Now the question is why the AI agent need governance? Because as I said, tool can be misused. Okay, if user enter any wrong query, according to it will provide the data, and there is always a behavior drift. It will not work as per the requirement. So moral of the story is that we need accountability, we need transparency, and we need a safety. That's the ultimate goal we have. So now let's understand that in detail what are the AI agent risk we have. So first risk is called operational risk. I'll give you a very good example of each. Okay, and recent case study. So if you take an example of operation risk, let's take an example of Microsoft Bing. I'm sure everyone know Bing. They have a Bing AI. So what happened in Sydney? In Sydney, or Australia, Sydney, they start producing very hallucinate in responses, which including made up of facts, emotional replies. And this shows how the agent can behave unpredictably and escalate the cost resource if it left unchecked. So that is basically called as a operational risk. Is it clear? So we need to talk about how to control that. Second is basically called as security risk, which called as the prompt injection. And one of the top most vulnerability, top most threat for any AI is the prompt injection, whether it's a Gen AI or AI agent and all that. And you'll be surprised to know that in 2024, okay, 2024, the researchers show how the malicious website could be inject hidden instruction into the text. And when AI agent read the text, it follow the hidden prompt and try to extract the private data. So that is basically called a security risk. Third is called as a compliance risk. In 2020, OpenAPI accidentally exposed user interaction data. In 2023, they have cities for GDPR non-compliance around the lawful data. That's a live example. And last is called as a business risk, which basically all about damaging a brand, unfair bias, and all that. The same thing happened with Microsoft. So Microsoft have a chatbot on Twitter. They start posting offensive and racist content, you know, within a 24-hour due to the manipulation. This caused a massive brand damage. So more of the story is that we need to define the risk appetite. What is the level of risk we can control? Map it the control and establish the clear escalation path. That's something we can look for. So now what is a governance principle? The first is called as accountability. You need to be very clear about in the contract and paper who is a owner of this AI agent, who take the responsibility, who will approve all the instructions. We call it as a SOP. Second is if you taking any AI agent and they're saying this is the model and all that, ask for the documentation like risk documentation, model card, risk functions and all that, and their bias testing reports. Third, you need to be very careful about what kind of a data you are limiting. So that is another important factor we have. Okay, you need to minimize the data. Uh, you need to mask the informations. That something is basically we talk about that. Then next is called security by design. Security by design, when you're building a AI architecture and all that, you have to start security as early as possible. Like you run all the thing in a sandbox environment, proper access control and logging need to be done. And last is basically called as a monitor with red teaming, pen testing and all that. So far clear? Now let's understand the operational procedures. This is more like a strategic procedure. Okay, now we're going to discuss about the operation procedure, how AI is used and monitored. First is that you have to define what action AI should never be allowed. As I said, I want to do the transaction, but it should not go beyond the 4,000 or 6,000. So you define the clarity to the AI agent. And if they don't do as per that, we have a auditability action. If AI make decision, there must be a way to trace the steps. And this is vital for accountability and all that. So I need a logs to be generated. Then only I can able to audit what go well and what go wrong. The third most important thing, based on data, you'll do monitoring also, so that you can able to improve the hallucinations and all that. And last is basically involve the red teaming. They will do the pen testing on AI. Okay, they do the pen testing on the AI agent after the approval, so that they can able to test the vulnerabilities and everything. Now we need to understand what is the governance responsibility of the AI agent. So as I said, the first thing, define the boundary. What is the meaning is establish the rules of agent, capabilities, operation scope, and human side and all that. So it is good if it's a sensitive AI agent, if it processing a sensitive information, providing a sensitive data, make sure you have a human interaction in every stage. Ask for the consent. Second is validate all the performance, by doing red teaming, fitness, and safety. Third, any kind of an output is produced, it should have a least privilege. Okay, policy as a code, and run everything in a sandbox environment before we make it live. And make sure with the help of KRI and all that, you should control that. And then whatever you document, you should document their agent cards and their activity logs are very important because that help me to revalidate my boundaries, validate the performance, implement the controls and everything. Now what the point I'm going to cover, it's a very, very important part because this is deal with the AI agent decisions. Very, very important. Okay. What happened is I want to control the decisions of AI agent because AI agent takes some decisions. Is it clear? So this is something I recently did for one of the fintech. Okay. What I did when I established the policy, I mapped the policy with approve action. Let me take an example. So I create a policy where I can say AI can auto refund up to 2,000 rupees. Anything which is above required human approval. And correct me if I'm wrong, those who are from India, okay, they can able to relate better. Like, if you're doing any transaction in a credit card up to 500 to 1,000, it doesn't ask for the PIN and all that. But if you're doing anything above the 1,000, 2,000, it will ask for the PIN. Yes or no? Or if you're doing any transactions above the 1 lakh and all that, you receive the auto call from the bank. Yes or no? That is basically called as a threshold. Same like, okay, same like, okay, same like we basically doing for the AI agents. Is it clear? Same like we're doing for the AI agents. Set the policy. Why? The question is why? The question is why? Because by this you avoid the AI making a unbound decisions. Is this clear? Hello? Is this clear? So that something is basically part of the requirement. Second important thing you need to understand. Second important thing you need to understand here is, uh, you need to have an escalation protocol. If any refund request is above the 2,000 or 5,000 and all that, you flagged as a fraud risk or system will trigger an alert. So here what happened is on the escalation part, I want a human escalation. Why? Because any high value risk or any high value transaction should not be fully automated. But problem is that for that also you need to define the classification. Without classification, you can't do that. That's why third step is tiered autonomy mapping. Now, this is the very interesting part, and I have seen a lot of people struggle on this area. Now, listen carefully. Now, here in this fintech, what I did, I defined tier one. Tier one is basically mean auto refund. Okay, so we have a auto refund. Auto refund in the case of if it's less than 2,000. Okay, 10th and 2,000 to 10,000. Okay, we need a human approval. Okay, and anything about 10,000, it should not be go by the AI agent. Is it clear? So this is how we match the autonomy with the risk. Same thing you can do for any use cases. Is it clear? That's why I don't know whether notice when you go to airport, if your baggage is above the 15 kg, can you send that in the machine without the crew and all that? No. If you see such Bangalore airport and Hyderabad airport. That is why it's very important to define the autonomy mapping. Next is called as a operation guardrail. So AI can also restrict to refunding only purchase made on the company platform. Like it cannot access unrelated accounts. So by this, we can able to prevent the misuse of scope creep. We can also decide what kind of a content should go out. And for that, we need to first have a policy because it prevents the compliance breaches and reputational damage. And more important part is basically fail safe, which avoid the incorrect actions under the uncertainty. So these are the core activities we have that we need to have with AI agent decisions. Now we're going to discuss about the risk matrix. So when we're talking about risk matrix, we are using a NIST AI framework. Okay, so first step is govern because based on the NIST AI risk assessment, we need to do the AI agent. So first step is govern. Second step is called as a map. Third is called as a measure. And fourth is basically called as a manage. Now, company has given you task that you need to do the assessment for the AI agent. So you will follow NIST AI risk management framework. Now, it basically talk about how much autonomy agent has. Now, let's take an example. If it's a medical healthcare and the agent is dealing with lot of patient data and based on that we have to take a decision. So you need to make the autonomy very high or you need to make it autonomy very low. I need to reply the chat box. If you understood this session so far, I want your input. Now a company has given you task and you need to do the assessment of that. So will you have a autonomy of AI agent high or will you have a autonomy of agent will be low? The answer is low because if you have a high, everything they will do that. So you need to set the acceptable risk threshold. What is safe versus unsafe? Okay, you need to establish the governance policy for that. As I said, a customer support agent can draft refund requests up to 2000, but it cannot execute more than that. So here we have a policy that's called as a govern. Second is basically called as a mapping. Mapping mean it need to be, so we need an inventory of agent, data source and dependencies because we need to identify where the agent is connect, CRM, payment gateway and all that. Is it clear? So we have to look for CRM API, payment API, and we have to make sure no hidden tools are basically there. Third is basically called as a measure. So we have to test the agents for the robustness, fairness, privacy, and reliability before any kind of a deployment. Is it clear? It can ignore the rule, does it suggest the refund equally across the customer, or does it ever expose Aadhaar card, or does it constantly company policies answer and all that? So we have to measure all those things. And last is basically called as a manage, where you monitor the agent in productions, kill switch, if any incident happen, how to. So this is how you're doing a risk assessment of the AI agent. That same thing we discuss here. You can see define the autonomy, inventory, test, and monitor. So governance basically gives the rule plus accountability, while security ensure the enforcement and resilience. Is this clear? So now what happen is how we can have a policy control pack. So one thing is that you need to have an approve API. That's a practice you should start from today itself. Create a role-based agents. Instead of have one agent do everything, create a role-based agent. No over collection, no retention of sensitive informations. Any kind of a changes, you need to go through a change management policies and all that. That something is part of the function. Now, one more important thing you need to understand is you need to have a proper identity management. As I said, you need to see how the identity has been tracked with AI. Okay, so you make sure the identity must be unique. And for each and every agent, we can have a unique ID. So we can able to audit. Second is we need to have a least privilege. You have to minimize the API scope. Too much API mean bigger attack surface. And third, no hard coded keys. I have seen a lot of cases where the agent has exposed the keys. It should not be with the same agent. We can have a third party where we can have a keys. Is it clear? So privilege, having a least privilege can have a better visibility. Now, when you're talking about the data governance part, so approved data source is the first factor. So from which we collect the data for AI agent, define the purpose data minimizations and make sure data sovereignty. If you're doing a job in a particular country and all that, an AI agent is used in a particular region, make sure we should have that kind of functions. And when you're using an AI agent, make sure robustness testing has to be done, which is basically part of the APT and everything. That something is part of the function. Second important thing, we look for the reliability, we look for the fairness testing, And overall, we look for the security. Another important thing, okay, we need to understand is that monitoring oversight. How important is the monitoring oversight for AI? Is it important? Yes, we need a metrics for that. Example like operation metrics, risk metrics, and unified dashboard. I have seen a lot of people literally struggle with this area, operation metrics and their risk metrics and all that. So you need to check how much agent is successful, what is the latency and all that. So we can able to improve the governance. How many times jailbreak happen? Do we have any centralized document to collect and monitor the data? So these are things are part of the monitoring and oversight. And this is where this need to be mapped with my incident management process also. How? If anything happen, we can able to contain, we can investigate easily, we can remediate, and we can have a report. So question is in which condition we need to trigger the incident? Whenever there's a policy violation, incident, cause anonymous, and more important compliance breach. Along with that, if anything collecting too much data and lead to the data hacking and all that, in that case also we can have an activation of the incidents. So now the question is how to adopt the AI with governance. The first phase, you need to deploy the AI agent. That's a first important activity. Okay. Deploy agent in a low risk domain because you have a zero visibility. So better deploy in the low risk domain. Second is, and in doing that time, you develop the governance framework and baseline control, what you need. Second is you will supervise initially. Third, slowly and gradually, you will improve the scope and everything, which include about the agent consent and all that. And finally, you can have a mature governance. I repeat again, when you're deploying the agent, you should deploy in a low risk domain, not high risk domain, low risk domain, so that you can have visibility everything. Where you establish a framework based on metrics and all that. Then you have a supervised expansion. Initially, you have to do supervised expansion. That's a very important part. Then slowly and gradually increase the scope. And then finally, you improve the maturity. So before you scale the AI agent, this is where the people does mistake. Before you scale any AI agent, there are some checklists you have to follow. Example, clear ownership, who does what. Okay, codified policy for the data access tool. Red team assessment if you're doing, how are you doing the assessment that need to be captured, monitoring the activities, and more important, in which condition incident need to be triggered. So this is basically the high level section we have discussed in the AI governance with how to control the AI agent. Is it clear?